All right, guys. Hey, welcome back to the Digital Learning Channel. Hope you had a great lunch and a restful break there with us. Happy Friday to you. We believe we're up and running live. Thank you for joining us. Please, if you would, drop a quick hello in the chat section and let us know who you are, what school you're with, and if you have any questions. So we are joined now by Miss Rebecca Despain, and she's going to talk to us about writing talks to accelerate student learning through authentic literacy. So Rebecca, I'll turn it over to you. Thanks for being with us.
All right, thank you, and I hope everyone had a great week and are looking forward to the weekend. The weather looks beautiful. Before I begin, I'll introduce myself. I am an acceleration coach for the MTSS academic team. Now, that's not to be confused with the MTSS engagement or the MTSS behavior. We all work together. However, behavior and engagement are for the Division of Culture and Climate, and academics is under the Division of Teaching and Learning. But before I give you my presentation, I would like just to present a little or share some history and context and background for my idea here. Let me go. Get it all. There we go. Let's see if I remember everything here. All right. So I participated in an action research cohort with the focus on writing. And we were to answer a driving question or solve a problem of practice with writing instruction. So I had a lot of ponderings about writing instruction, and these are some of them I had for my action research. I knew that there was a need for increasing the connection and exposure to science and social studies content. I believed that we needed an increase in critical writing to demonstrate learning with application of the claim, evidence, reason framework. I believe in the power of critical discourse. Time is always an issue. This happened to be an elementary cohort, so we're looking at the elementary schedule, and time is always an issue. I know there's power in learning from each other, and I believe authentic literacy to be a primary mode for learning. Now, all of these things were floating in my head, and I wasn't quite sure which direction I wanted to take. But it all came together when I was watching Andrea Higdon give a Number Talks presentation. Now, that wasn't the first time I had seen a Number Talks. However, all of my ponderings came together, and I began to wonder whether we could use the same format and have a writing talk. So, like I said, authentic literacy, I believe, is to be a primary mode for learning. And that is why it was the core for my action research. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page with our definition of authentic literacy. And this comes from Mike Schmoker in his book, Focus, Elevating the Essentials to Radically Improve Student Learning. So he stated that authentic literacy simply means purposeful and usually expository, argumentative, or interpretive reading, discussion, and writing. And those were all the areas of focus for my action research. He also goes on to say that genuine literacy is still the unrivaled key to learning both content and thinking skills. So authentic literacy as a tool is very powerful in accelerating student learning. Now, I want you to keep this quote in your mind as I'm going through this presentation. And so just keep it in the forefront because we'll touch back to it. Writing is a way to explore a question and gain control over it. Now, I'd like you to kind of read that again or think about that for just a moment. Writing is a way to explore a question and gain control over it. And if you think about it, it makes writing such a powerful tool in the classroom, and it's one that's often, I think, unused. We often will maybe have a lot of discussion, but then we don't take it to the stage of putting our thinking in writing. Now, my action research plan is grounded in JCPS's, I think, all three pillars. 3 systems, 3 instructional practices for deeper learning, 4, progress monitoring and analysis of student work, and then 5, academic and behavior supports. And that's where my role as an acceleration coach fits in with MTSS. It is also supportive of the backpack of success skills, particularly as an effective communicator. I used an infographic for my artifact for my action research, so I'm going to pull that up so I can share my action research with you. Now, I'm hoping sharing this information will plant a seed in somebody's mind on how you might implement this daily. Was my idea in your classroom to accelerate learning with critical writing skills. I'm sorry, I'm a loss for words doing two things at once. So originally, my title was Critical Student Discourse in Writing to Accelerate Learning. It's really catchy. But I wanted you to think of it as a number talk. So when I say that, I mean as a short amount of time and very powerful amount of time. So I want to kind of share with the why behind it, because you need to know the why before we get to the what. So why would I follow this format for my action research and this particular idea? Well, to begin with, it is authentic literacy. It speaks to speaking, listening, reading, and writing. It engages students behaviorally, cognitively, and emotionally. Now, also keep in mind, when I originally planned this action research, it was in a traditional classroom setting. So thinking all the kids would come to the carpet, or they could stay at their desk depending on the context of your room and how you handled your classroom management. But that's where this original idea was going to be taking place in the classroom. I was going to focus or have the focus using the claim, evidence, reason framework, because it increases and develops students' analytical thinking and argumentative writing skills. And if you think about it, for instance, if you would use this idea maybe with intermediate or middle school, high school, you would also add in those other components. If you're familiar with Think Circa, the claim, evidence, reason, counter-argument, and audience, then it would make it more powerful. It can even turn into a complete writing piece. For this purpose, it would just be a paragraph or a short response. It also, this action research or this idea of a writing talk, is also culturally responsive. So it uses, as we'll find out, an open-ended question, a compelling question, or a quote. So students are not looking for a right or wrong answer. We're asking students to use their perspective, their lived experiences, their cultural backgrounds to share their thinking. And it's a student-focused approach. And then we get to critical discourse, which is a powerful tool as well. Think of it sort of as a mini Socratic seminar where they're all sitting together. They have a verbal exchange of ideas, all focused on that question or quote. And it supports the grade level standards. Again, I invite you, if you were to try this, or my idea behind it was to look at the grade level standards, particularly in science and social studies, and pull questions and quotes that would support that learning at that grade level. And it's an excellent tool for formative assessment in many ways. Not only during the discussion can you assess a student's critical thinking, you can also assess their listening, their behavioral skills, their sharing, how they share and work with each other. So it's cognitively, behaviorally, socially, emotionally assessing. You also could collect their writing to analyze it for knowledge gaps, and also provide feedback for claim, evidence, reasoning framework. So this is where it fits into System 4 for monitoring and analyzing student work, as well as System 5 for creating tiered supports. So the whole idea, and this is a general description of how I had envisioned this to work, was you would identify that open-ended or compelling question or quote based on science or social studies text, but it could easily come from just a wondering of the day or civic engagement or what's going on in the world. So that would be up to the teacher's discretion. You would then read the question to the kids and then give them some time for brief processing. When the students were ready to respond, they would give a nonverbal cue, and then the discussion could begin. So even thinking like number talks, using those same nonverbal cues for agreeing, disagreeing, and adding to, then that would be consistent, and they would be familiar with that. The students then would be listening. They would have their response, but then they would be listening to others and possibly change their perspective and give them new insights. And then they would go back and respond and show their thinking in writing. And then hopefully you would have time for students to share their writing the next day. Again, if that would go back to writing, but you also, I feel would be very powerful is sometimes to practice, to ask the students to go back to do their writing, but give them a time limit, because we know when it comes to assessments, they often have a time limit. And this would give them a chance to practice and build that stamina to write a response to an assessment question using claim, evidence, reason within a time frame. Right, so that was the whole idea of my action research. And so why am I sharing that now when we are in a digital world? Well, I thought, well, how could we apply this digitally? Now, I know there are many ways and many different digital tools out there. I have become familiar with several over the last few weeks, and I'm very appreciative to have this kind of time to explore those different digital tools. I think they will be very powerful when we do return back to our buildings and use them in our classroom. While there are numerous ones like Google Slides or blogs or videos, I'm thinking even older kids, they could upload a video of themselves with their response, and then they could listen to other students and other classmates' responses through the videos. But for this purpose, I wanted to try out a tool that everybody's been using, and that's Jamboard. And then I was going to use the digital writing tool of a writing assignment, creating a writing assignment in Study Island, because that is a tool that we all have access to. And there's other uses for the writing assignment within Study Island that you might use for small group instruction, progress monitoring, tiered support. So I wanted to share that with you as well. So the first thing I did was to create a Jamboard. And I chose a compelling question from third grade Social Studies Unit 8. So this is the compelling question for Unit 8 in third grade Social Studies. Are we all the same? Now, it is possible, one way to use this would be to present this question at the very beginning of my unit of study, have the students respond, but then also pose it again at the end to see how their thinking and perspectives might have changed. So the students would choose the sticky note that's with their assigned number, then they would put their response on that sticky note. And we would request of them by the end of the time, whether it's a week or 2 weeks, to respond, to read other responses of their classmates and then respond to those students. And that would be on the second Jamboard. So on this Jamboard are sticky notes for students to respond to each other. And there's 2 on there right now. And I would also supply them with an accountable talking stems, and that would be available to them in the Google Classroom so that they can use those to frame their questions to raise that level of conversation. So once they have written their response, then they have read other students' responses and responded to other students' responses, and then again, read the responses other students give to each other. So it's kind of like that digital discourse. One advantage of it digitally is it would allow time for students that maybe struggle to process the question a little bit more, to come up with their response instead of having to do that right away. So there would be an advantage to do it digitally as well as in real time. So now the digital writing tool that I am going to share with you is the writing assignment in Study Island. So we're going to go there. And you would go as a teacher through your Clever account. And you go to teacher page. But I also want to point out while I'm here, I know there have been several virtual trainings on Study Island, but just in case you haven't used it much and you want to start using Study Island more, because again, it is a tool that everyone can access, but you're not sure about all the parts. It has this help center, and there's great video tutorials and different guides to help you to learn the program. So I just wanted to share that with you. But for today, we're going to go to create a writing assignment. And I created my class. I chose a class. And you'll get to this screen. And so I put my assignment title in. Maybe. I would, for this case, and leave the enforced dates off, just because in our digital world, and we're trying to not stress kids out with time, but you could put in your beginning and end date, activate the assignment. Here is where I would give the instructions. I'm not going to type them all in, but well, maybe I won't respond at all because I'm still typing while I'm talking. So you would go ahead and give the directions. And also in here, I would remind them about the CER framework and the accountable talking stems in our classroom. So you would just let them know what they needed to do this assignment. There are your directions. I have 2,903 characters remaining, so I have plenty of room to give the directions. Now, the graphic organizers, in this case, I'm asking them to use the claim evidence graphic organizer, so I'm not going to choose one of these. But if you have some time, you might want to peruse this list. There's the Foursquare writing organizer, which I found to be very helpful. And if you click on an organizer and then click on the magnifying glass, you can actually see a sample of what that would look like. So there might be, I just clicked out of it. I did this the other day. Oh, here we go. Sorry. There are other graphic organizers on here as well, but we are going to not select one of those because I'm going to do the claim, evidence, reason. I will give them spell check. Writing rubrics, again, the Kentucky writing scoring rubric is in here. Then you can look at that. That might be a resource for you for another assignment. But again, for this one, I'm not going to use that rubric. It's not applicable to this assignment. So I'm going to score manually. And then I will give the writing assignment. So I wanted to show you this as well, because this is where you might go. If let's say you're working with the focus group on writing skills, and you're having them do weekly writings to use for progress monitoring, or just work on in small group. Could be also an assignment during your workshop, your ELA workshop. So there are different prompts in here for the different genres. So you can choose any one of those. Let's see what this persuasive one looks like. So it'll give you a prompt that you can have them respond to. Some of them could be a short response. Some of them I've looked at, you could even use for an on-demand to practice a prompt or to get a baseline for their on-demand writing, so that you can select it in any genre and for any purpose. But for this reason, I would be going to create my own prompt. And again, are we all the same? And then provide any other information I would need to give them to respond in writing. Next, I would assign it to my students. Here, I've selected a whole class because this is a classroom discourse. However, if I wanted to just do it with a few students, like a focus group or one-on-one, that I wanted to use for progress monitoring or scaffolding supports, I could go in and I could just click on the ones that I did not want to have the assignment, get them off the list, and then assign it to them. So again, you use it for a tool as would meet your needs. So now the assignment's been created. I've created it a few times here to practice, but I can end up going back and I can either deactivate it later. I can view and grade the assignments. Now, when I get to grading the assignments, let's come back to that. Let's just look at these others. I can do the details, I can edit, and then I can delete it if I don't want to. So I'll delete that one, and it'll give me that. Let's say I go to this assignment, and I want to view it. And I view the assignment, and I see, this is where it comes into system 4 and 5. I'm going to analyze the student work, and then I'm going to support that student work, give feedback, and assign next steps to close those gaps in their knowledge level, knowledge and skill with writing. So let's say I'm reading some of their writing, and I notice that they're having trouble with punctuation or capitalization or run-on sentences. I can go find an assignment within Study Island and assign it to them. So let's just take a look at that. Let's say I would go to my content search, choose Kentucky, then the grade, let's say it's 3rd grade, go to ELA. Now remember, if you have a link to the NWEA report with Study Island, it will give you a learning path for reading and math only, not for composition or language. You would have to go in and make those assignments. So if I go to language and I notice my 3rd grader is having trouble with sentences, I could click on this and I could launch a lesson. I could assign flashcards and I could have them practice sentences. I invite you to think of this. Sometimes when we have our tiered supports of tier 2 and 3, we wonder, how do we get to them in the day? We don't have enough time. We don't have enough people. You might think of having a blended intervention where maybe a few days they're on the computer completing some assignments you've given them based on their goals. And then maybe a few days a week you are meeting with them individually in a small group, reviewing those goals and those skills as well. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use this writing assignment tool. So let's go back to, and also when you're with the writing, you not only can make assignments, but give them feedback on their writing and return it to them and give them a chance to bump it up. There's nothing, feedback is a very powerful and effective tool. So that would be the digital tool. That's the digital tool that I shared for this particular presentation, but I know there are many others out there. So let's kind of look at the scaffolds and supports for acceleration that are included within this possible action research plan. Students get a chance to listen to one another. So think about that. Those students that often, I don't know what to write. I don't know where to start. It's kind of like that turn and talk. They get the opportunity to listen to others' thinking. It can change their thinking and change their perspective, and they give them thoughts they hadn't thought of before that they might then use in their writing. It provides a graphic organizer, the claim, evidence, reason. If they maybe need another organizer for their writing, those are available as well. Some students, once they get used to using the claim, evidence, reason, would not maybe need the graphic organizer. But let's think of the power. I'd like you to think of the power of using that claim, evidence, reason framework over and over intentionally with student critical writing. So when it comes to a time when they have a question in an assessment, like an ERQ or a short answer, it's become habit. They make their claim, they provide evidence and reason. And so then that would help them organize their answers on assessment questions. And like I said, it would become habit. It also provides the countable talking stems to help them frame their response, to elevate the level of conversation. You can provide individual assignments based on student performance and create an individualized learning path for them. It would provide the rubric. I didn't mention this earlier, but in the classroom, I would have that rubric available to them, and that would be the same rubric they used each and every time they did the claim, evidence, reason, writing, and they would know the expectations. There's a high effect size in students knowing what the expectations are before proceeding with an assignment. And then also you have the teacher feedback and the response to the student writing. The students can get their writing back, they can bump it up, turn it back in for writing, and it's just can be a very powerful tool. So if this idea might speak to you, or you would like to talk and have a thinking partner on that, I would love that. If you think you might use this in your classroom or maybe digitally in any way, or maybe this created a different seed for you. That's where the power is in sharing our ideas and our thinking with each other. Not only students is it powerful for, but it's also powerful for teachers because we get so many ideas from each other. So if you do want to share your ideas with me, this is how you can reach me, or if I can support you in any way at all during this NTI time. Please don't hesitate to reach out. There's my email, rebecca.despain@jefferson.kyschools.us. Again, I'm a MTSS acceleration coach. Or if you have some questions about Study Island or ExactPath, those are a couple of programs that are used for tiered supports that we can help you out with. And I believe, I know Samantha Bennett and Ashley Byerly, two of my teammates, who are also acceleration coaches for MTSS, have presented on Study Island. So any of us would be happy to reach out to you. And another tool, I've tried to use a lot of tools this week, is this word art. I also think would be, it'd be fun for your classroom too. I'm sure some of you have used it, but I just plugged in my words around my presentation and then created the word art. Let's see. Do I have time? I can quickly.
Yeah, I was getting ready to ask, okay. Rebecca, if you don't mind, that'd be awesome. That looks like a really neat tool.
Okay. It was really easy. Easy was what I look for because easy and free.
Absolutely. Those are key words.
There we go. Yeah. So wordart.com. And so you just create your own account by putting in your email. And then if I want to create one, I go to create. Now these words are in here for default. I would just type in. You can also go down here and check a shape, change your font, change the layout, style. So I'm going back to my words. And let's just say reading. These first three though are going to be the largest on your word art. So you just keep adding words as many as you want. Let's think of one more. Well, we won't think of one more, but just put it together. So then you just push visualize and it creates it.
Wow.
And so I have just left it as a cloud, and then you can download it up here, share it, save it to your computer, and then I just downloaded it and then uploaded it to my presentation. So that's how that worked.
Well, that's awesome. You even had time to sneak in a little bonus tool there, Rebecca.
I did.
That was very cool.
Trying to get back to you. Stop presenting.
Well, that was fantastic. We appreciate you being with us. Yeah, you released the screen now. Yep.
Woo! Success.
All right. Well, way to go. Thank you so much for sharing all that with us and being here. And again, you guys saw how you can get a hold of Rebecca if you'd like to collaborate or if she can support you in any way. So again, thank you, Rebecca, and have a wonderful weekend. And thanks for being with us.
Yeah, have a wonderful weekend too.
All right.
See you.
All right, guys. So as we turn our sights over to the schedule for today, if we head on down into the afternoon hours for the 1 o'clock time slot, we should see Building Resilience is coming up next. And guys, to get to this this list of shows, if you will visit the NTI support web page, the teacher toolkit, and then the virtual training schedule, that will take you right in there and will let you see based on week of what's coming up, what day and time. So be sure to check on that for the next few weeks and see what's coming up. Got a lot of great teachers, administrators, runs the gamut that will be involved on the show with us. And so we really appreciate everybody hopping in to share all the awesome stuff that they're doing and all the cool tools to really break down those silos and when you're as large as we are in this district, sometimes it's tricky to get together, but this is a major tool to help us get the power of pause and really share some of that wealth. So thank you to all of our presenters, and thank you to all of our viewers that are out there watching and keeping the chat alive and well. We appreciate you being with us today. So let's see, we've got, I see Jennifer's on, and okay. So are you guys have a presentation for us today, guys?
Yes.
All right. Well, had you used been able to use the closed captioning feature before?
Yes, it works when I speak, but not usually for anybody else, but I'll turn it on.
Okay, great. Well, we'll take what we can get. I appreciate it. And with that, we'll turn it over to you when you guys are ready.
All right. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I am Lisa McGarry, and I am a resource teacher with Social Emotional Learning and Trauma-Informed Care. And with me today is Jen Driscoll. Jen, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey guys, I'm Jennifer Driscoll. I am a resource teacher with Social Emotional Learning and Trauma-Informed Care, and we are happy to be with you all on Friday afternoon.
All right, and we are going to get started talking to you about building resilience today. I'm going to get us started, and we're going to start off with our contact information. With all of our presentations, we have included this, and let everybody who is watching know if you have any needs, would like any resources, have any questions that you're not comfortable with putting in the chat, please feel free to reach out and email any of the four of us. You see the department is made up of myself and Jen, and then our boss, Dr. Lamisa Marks-Johns, and our other resource teacher, Jay Johnson. They are both in the chat and will be responding to any questions or comments, concerns that you might have as we go through this presentation. And if you don't catch our email information here at the beginning, we'll have it again at the end for your reference. Okay, so as we get started, we want to review the goals that we have for this training. And we're going to start off with talking about a definition of resilience. And then I am going to discuss some protective factors. And then we're going to wrap it up with Jen giving us some strategies and some awesome activities that can be used with students or for yourself as you work on nurturing and building resilience. With all of our trainings, we always include a self-care alert. I mentioned that we are the trauma department, and sometimes some of the topics that we are talking about brings about uncomfortable feelings. So if this is something that brings up some things for you, feel free to take a break. I know that these sessions are recorded, so you can always come back to it at a later time. If you have the need to talk to someone, feel free to put things in the chat or email one of us, phone or text a friend, whatever it is that you might need to do. Or even step away and do something relaxing. If you watched any of our other sessions, you may have seen some breathing exercises that we've shown. That's a good way to relax. The weather is beautiful today, or so it seems out my window. Maybe walking outside and being in the sun might be something that you need to do to take a break and relax yourself. First off, we want to talk, and hopefully in the chat you feel comfortable with letting us know why more than ever, resilience and the building of it is so important for our students as well as for ourselves. We know that we are in the middle of a pandemic, which is a stressful time. I have been emailing with some teachers today, and some have talked about their new normal and how it's tough trying to work as a teacher while also keep up with their children and their schoolwork. So why might it be important to build resilience, not only for our students, but also for ourselves? So if you put that in the chat, and we can discuss some of that as we go. With that, let's talk about what resilience is. Here is a definition for you. This is being able to adapt positively to adversity that comes up in life. So I mentioned the things that we are going through, that we are all stuck in our homes or having to make sure we're not in social gatherings with more than a few people, trying to keep our distance from everyone, not just strangers, to ensure that we are not spreading the coronavirus. I think that even the reopening that is getting ready to happen is something that is causing some feelings of anxiousness for me. What is that going to mean? That, this has become our new normal, and this is what we've been told is working. Well, what is it going to mean on May 11th when things open back up? Are we going to see the streets that have been essentially empty of cars now be packed because people are so tired of being in their homes? Well, resilience is understanding that feelings and thoughts and things like that are going to come up, but we have the strength and the skills, excuse me, to overcome that, to know that yes, while adversity is going to come, we are going to be able to continue functioning and live life in a somewhat normal way, even though we're dealing with hard times. So here are some other ways to look at resilience. It's the ability to overcome adversity and to thrive. So it's the ability to understand that hard times sometimes come, but they too shall pass. This is something that you don't have to necessarily be born with. It is something that can be nurtured, and we'll talk about some protective factors and some ways in which it can be nurtured for ourselves and for others. Excuse me. This is possible for anybody. It doesn't have to just be people who came from healthy homes, people who had healthy relationships with caregivers. Any person is able to build resilience with the right experiences and skills and thoughts, behaviors, whatever it might be. It encompasses all of that. But resilience is something that can be nurtured. It can be taught. Letting people have that positive struggle. We talked about that a whole lot when I was in a school, about having issues that came up and allowing students to problem solve, not always coming to the rescue, and allowing them to figure out in that growth mindset where they can get from one problem to a solution, and understanding it doesn't always have to be the same path. That just because somebody has shown one way that might not match our needs and our personalities, we may have to do it different, but it's possible for all of us. Resilience also does not mean that there won't be any difficulty. Difficulty is just part of life. It's what allows us to grow. I heard something in the last couple of days that said that you don't grow without failure. So you have to have those moments where you get things wrong, and then you can learn how to get them right. But sometimes it is through the process of doing it wrong that we figure out the easier ways to go about. It's the things that open our eyes to those bright moments, like what this quote here on the slide says, that changes the perspective that yes, something bad happened with a barn burning down, but it opens up the space now to be able to see the moon. So understanding that sometimes it is those moments or those times where life is not the easiest that changes our focus and says, now I have to live a different way, just like we've had to do with NTI, having to stay home and change that path of education. But I also saw something the other day that talked about how teachers have risen up to this, how educators were given no notice, and they were able to put together a system that is working, that is supporting our students, that is maintaining their education, not letting them fall backwards or fall through the cracks, that all of these things are continuing to move forward. So it's like this slide also says, with building a muscle. So you have to continue to be intentional with the focus and the skills and the activities. And as long as that is intentional, resilience will grow. Having conversations with individuals when students, well, I can't read this, it's too hard. Not reading it for them, but finding the ways to help them sound out the letters, putting clusters together, whatever it might be, to motivate them to get past those thoughts so that their actions become positive and resilience continues to grow. Again, it's about being intentional. It's not about saying, well, you can do it. I know you can, but giving them those skills and teaching them ways to overcome or to get past those roadblocks. We want you to think about this, because oftentimes as educators, we can go down that rabbit hole of thinking about all the adverse effects life has on our students, that they have this going on in their home, this situation that is occurring, and we wish, as those people in the caring profession, that we could remove those roadblocks. But with resilience, it's not about taking away the adversity. It is necessary for some hard times to come about. When we talk about some of our other training topics, we talk about how stress is necessary. That stress is what creates that fight, flight, or freeze response, so that when we're in danger, our bodies move to get us out of it. If my house caught on fire, without that stress response, we may not be quick to take ourselves out so that we are able to survive, to call 911, to get the response that is needed. Same thing in those other professions. Sometimes stress is a positive thing because it causes us to move forward or away from harm. That's what it is for us to focus on with our students. Nurturing and being intentional in those strategies, allowing students to build their own resilient muscles so that when we're not present as educators, when they move on to the next grade from us, that they are able to positively struggle to get to some outcome and know, hey, my muscle got a little bit bigger. You know what? Next time it's not going to be as hard because I was able to overcome this. I mentioned this on Wednesday that I love the quote or the thought that, you've survived all of the hard days up to now. You're going to get through this too. That, hard times come and we pull up our bootstraps or whatever other words you want to use to describe it, and we keep moving forward with this. It's about focusing that and teaching our students skills while also honing our own. The last piece that I want to talk about is protective factors. And I mentioned this when I was talking about how resilience can be nurtured in others. These are the things that we can do. These are the things that, if they are present, will nurture that ability to be resilient in times of adversity. So when we're looking at protective factors, we're talking about events. We're talking about characteristics. We're talking about supports in the family. We're talking about supports in the environment that allow for healthy development and positive life outcomes. Sometimes it is just in the outlook. Sometimes it is understanding, okay, yes, this might be overwhelming. However, I have skills that will allow me to continue to move forward in life. It might be something as small as learning multiplication facts, but getting all of that and even being able to say to those students who are really struggling, well, do you remember how it was really hard for you to remember your times tables by 12? Well, but you got there and you were able to move past it. So now let's look at our ways of writing biographies or narratives, whatever it might be, moving on to another skill. But as we continue to build those things as reminders, we're increasing that resilience. That muscle is growing and those times are getting easier to overcome. Some examples of protective factors, and I have mentioned this first one, with showing sensitivity and responsive caregiving. This one I think is critical because it's about meeting people where they are. If I am one who is facing a really hard time, my coworkers know that my needs are different than theirs. And just because mine are different doesn't make them right or wrong, but they are sensitive to what I need. So if it's a really hard time, maybe I'm not the hugger, but maybe that's not what I need. Maybe I need a card, but maybe somebody else is a hugger. And I have to be mindful of that in their time of need. That responsive caregiving is understanding sometimes people don't do well with physical touch. I've been watching the news and saw a conversation about having to wear masks. And there is a lady who's been on the news several times who was a victim to some violence. And she said that putting the mask on is a trigger for her. Well, if she was someone that we interacted with, then we would be sensitive to that. We would be responsive to that, not shaming her and saying, well, you should wear a mask anyways. She is having anxiety attacks and being triggered because of putting that on. That's an example of showing sensitivity and responsive caregiving. Providing the emotional support in the ways that we can to also allow them to build that for themselves. So I know that there are times where I need to reach out to individuals to support me emotionally. And then there are times where I know I don't have to reach out because even though I know that they would be there, that I have built that skill so I don't always have to rely on it. The other thing that I like to point out, and throughout this job and working with other individuals in schools, I love this support for caregiver well-being. There are many things that we do that focus on students, but also being mindful in times that sometimes the caregivers are doing the best that they can with what they have in the moment. Understanding that this is an overwhelming time for them as well, and trying to be sensitive and responsive to their needs, not just the needs of the students, but building those relationships with caregivers can be so critical to increase the protective factors for our students. It's like a domino effect. We connect with those who care for our students at home, and those caregivers, trust us, and then it builds on that. So now they're going to be supportive of what you're trying to do with students at home, and it's a circle of support. We're going to move into some strategies and some activities, and Jen's going to talk to you about some of those and ways in which we can support resilience specifically.
All right, so we're going to talk about strategies that support resilience. And when we talk about these strategies that support resilience, I don't want you just to think about your students during this time period. I also want you to think about yourself. We have gone through a collective traumatic experience throughout the last couple of weeks. And so when we're thinking about how can we support our students to become more resilient, we also need to think about how can I support myself to become more resilient throughout this time period. And so a lot of these strategies that we'll discuss are not just great for the students that we work with every day, they're also really good for ourselves. So let's jump in and look at some of these strategies. So this first graphic is an overarching look at different things that support us in becoming more resilient in everything that we do. So talk to me for a second. Which of these do you guys think would be easy to do right now or harder to do right now? Lisa, what's your opinion?
I think that goal setting with realistic expectations kind of floats in the middle for me.
Okay.
That I've had to change the goals that, are realistic. And there are some that I find creeping in. I'm like, man, I wish I could do that. But I'm not going out in public. So that's not going to happen. So I'm having to sort of shift my mindset, but then also able to look at things within my home and say, oh, that's something that I can achieve. It's just different than what I would have focused on had I not been shut up in the house for as long as we have.
Yeah. One that I've talked about, ability to recognize my own emotions. I've mentioned that one every day that we've trained this week. Another one that I think I will touch on is willingness to overcome difficulties rather than avoid problems. Usually I am like, let's deal with issues wherever they may come. But yesterday I noticed that I was just in a funk the whole entire day. I don't know if it was the weather. I don't know if it was just everything compounding. And so my husband looked at me and he was like, you good? And I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I didn't want to discuss the situation. I didn't want to do any of it. So I've noticed that there are things that would be normally really easy for me to do in building resilience that might be a little bit more difficult based on where we're at right now. So I think this is something that's really interesting for us to keep in touch and be aware of, especially as we work with our students and look at ourselves in this resilience building component. So let's look at some really specific strategies that we can utilize in building resilience. The first one is connection. And I love that connection is a key part of building resilience because connection is what we need in everything that we do. We have to think about new ways to build connection and why connection is so incredibly important. So one of the things we want you to think about is prioritizing relationships. We want you to encourage your students to prioritize relationships. Encourage them to seek out social support networks, to seek out those pro-social peers. Do it for yourself. Seek out people that you know are good for your life, that are going to breathe life into you. Look for ways that you can support and connect with caregivers. Lisa mentioned this earlier and how incredibly important it is. It's so incredibly important for the work that we do. Yes, you're going to be in touch with your students, but also think about how important it is to be in touch with their parents or their caregivers as well, because they're also going through it too. I have a 7th grader and a 4th grader in JCPS, and I received an email from my 7th grader's dance teacher. She goes to a performing arts school, and she just gave me feedback on work that my daughter was doing. And she praised Amelia for a performance that she had recorded in our backyard. That felt great for me, just getting that feedback, but it also felt great that I could turn around and give that to my daughter, who tends to overanalyze everything. So we all need that connection. And I'm someone who connects with teachers on a regular basis. But as a parent, I don't always get that. So that connection piece is vital for all of us. So continue to look for those ways. All right, so the next strategy that we're going to talk about is wellness. And I love wellness for a lot of different reasons, because wellness isn't just that I'm going to take care of my body, but it's also that I'm going to look for ways to take care of my mind. So one of the things that we want you to think about is, how can you look for ways to foster this in the work that you're doing with your students as well as yourself? Think about avoiding negative outlets. Encourage your students to do the same. Ask them to turn off the TV when it becomes toxic. Walk away from those news media outlets when you know that you've watched too much. Stay away from people who have become toxic for you. That one is huge. Strive to be more hopeful. Help your students learn what it means to accept change. This is a huge period of change for each and every one of us. Think about some of your students where this is a really big period of change that we would walk them through, and we're not able to do that with them physically. Your 5th graders, your 8th graders, and your 12th graders. We would normally be walking them through those periods of change, but we can't do that. So think about ways that you can help do that with them throughout this process. We can have conversations. We can do journal writing prompts. We can do one-on-one videos to help them talk about what it feels like to go through this change. Are they excited about the next steps, or are they scared? This is a huge part of building resilience, because while they might be afraid, they might also be a little bit excited. And so that's an amazing thing that we can do. Talk about self-efficacy and the ability to know that you have what it takes to deal with whatever life's going to get through. And this is something you can do with kids from K through 12. And then encourage them to share some new experiences in wellness. How are they learning to care for themselves throughout this process? Because kids may be taking on new challenges that they've never taken on before. They might be learning to cook or learning to care for themselves in new ways. And so while this is out of the ordinary, it still encourages them to think about and care for themselves, which is a beautiful resilience building component. All right, so the next strategy that we're going to talk about is being open and aware. And so I really like this because it encourages us to think about how we're feeling and accept it for what it is. So one of the things that we have to learn how to do as humans is to accept challenging thoughts for what they are, but also provide a safe space for those challenging thoughts to flourish. Because here's the deal, all feelings are okay. They're a part of that human experience. And so what we want to do is we want to encourage ourselves and our students to be okay with what we're feeling throughout that process. Because there are going to be days where we wake up and we're like, man, I'm okay. I'm feeling great. The sun is shining. I'm going to knock out all these things today. And then there are going to be days where we wake up and we don't feel like doing anything. I dealt with this with my 4th grader yesterday. We have set aside time where I can sit down and help him with his schoolwork. And we map out the assignments that have to be done at the beginning of the week so he knows what's expected of him every day when we sit down. Yesterday we sat down and it took us 25 minutes to do one math problem. Math is his favorite subject. I finally looked at him and I'm like, dude, what is going on in your life? And he's like, I don't know. And then he just starts crying. That day was not a day that we were going to get through much. And he finally looked at me and he goes, I don't know what's wrong with me. And so we had to create a safe space where we could be aware of where we were at and be okay with it. That's something that's going to come up throughout this time. So be open and aware and allow yourself to process that. And this next one goes along with it beautifully. And this next strategy is be compassionate. But in that, it's not just be compassionate for those around you, but also encourage your students and yourself to show compassion to yourself. So I want you to think about how beautiful of a resilience building component this would be. When we teach ourselves and our students to be mindful of how you're feeling, physically, mentally, and emotionally, it's a huge process. but it teaches them not to judge themselves too harshly. And it helps students to understand the beauty of giving grace. Learning is a process. There are going to be days that you fail, but failing is a part of the learning process because we can never grow unless we're stretched. And so when we teach our students that it's okay to fall down as long as you get back up, and we walk them through that process and we teach them how to give themselves grace, then they really understand what resilience is all about. So one of the things we want to make sure that we do throughout this is give you some things that you can do with your students. We want you to be able to walk away with some activities that you can allow them to practice this resilience building piece. So if you access our Google Slides or if you email us, we can give you all of these links. But here are some that you can try. You can have your students create a vision board. You can allow them to complete a grit interview, which gets them talking to people about what resilience looks like in action. It gets them asking big questions. You can allow them to share stories of resilient people throughout history, or even some famous people that they might be interested in that they had no clue had to learn how to become resilient. You can teach them what we call the hard thing rule, which is where they have to try something new. They're the ones who are responsible for picking it. They must finish what they start, and it's theirs to own. And this one's really cool because it shows them that everybody has to get outside of their comfort zone a little bit. Here are a few others that you can try. One of my favorites is it inside or outside of my control? And for those of us who have type A personalities, this one's a big one because it gets them thinking about this is within my realm of control. This is what I can handle and this isn't. If you go to biglifejournals.com, there are a ton of amazing activities that really get kids thinking about resilience. There are journal prompts, there are different things that they can create, and they go all the way from kindergarten through 12th grade. So feel free to check out some of these things, and then let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like more of, and we're more than happy to help you with any of those. So here are a few more strategies that support resilience. I won't go over all of them with you, but just a few. Get kids to build on those feelings of competence and sense of mastery. Every kid is great at something. And so allow them to feel really successful at something and then build on that. Teach them how to reframe their thinking. Instead of feeling like they're defeated, help them to reframe that and think, how can I do this better? Or what can I grow from when I try this? A few more that we'll talk about are things like facing their fear, but with a support system, knowing that you've always got their back. Don't rush to their rescue. Allow them to try things out a little bit, but always meet them where they're at and then help walk them to where they need to go. And also remember that reactions throughout all of this are going to be varied. So empathy and understanding will go a really long way for your students that you're working with, for the people that live inside your home, and for yourself. So just meet them with empathy and understanding. So as we wrap up today, I'm going to leave you guys with a quote, and this can kind of help you when you think about building resilience or in the work that you're doing. It says, learning isn't a way of reaching one's potential, but rather a way of developing it. So remember, we're on this journey together. If there's anything that we can do to support you guys, to help you all out, if you want more resources, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Here's our contact information, and we're more than happy to help you guys with anything that we can.
All right, Jennifer. Well, thank you very much and team for being with us to go over that. And I can tell you, if I recall, I was a benefactor of some of the services you guys provided whenever I was at Moore. Some of your team had come in at a time and kind of given some training to staff and whatnot. And it was amazing. It kind of made you go like, why are we just now getting this? And it's not, it's just, it wasn't you guys. It was the emphasis was just now being really kind of put on to getting you guys out. It was awesome. So thank you guys for all of that.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Appreciate that. Thank you as always. And so we're
Have a
going to,
good Friday.
you too guys have a great weekend. Thank you. We're going to turn it over here shortly to harmonizing ELA and creativity. And if you are curious as to see what will be coming up next in the coming weeks or this afternoon, you can always visit the Teacher Toolkit at the JCPS NTI support page and then click on the virtual training schedule. And that will lead you into the upcoming weeks and time slots. So lots of great information coming that way. I just want to let you guys know if you joined us this morning, I think you had Mr. Matt Bolka with the Digital Innovation Team. I'm Kyle Chandler, and our team kind of scrambled behind the scenes to try to keep the channel up and running. And so a big shout out to my team watching. Thanks for being in there with me and supporting. And thank you to all of our guests that are on and all of those joining us in the chat and helping keep this a lively, living discussion. So it's awesome to see that and to see some of the back and forth that you guys are having. So we really appreciate the viewers and the participants. And again, as always, my own team. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to the team to discuss harmonizing ELA and creativity. And if you guys are ready, you can take it away.
Thank you so much. Well, good afternoon, JCPS. I'm going to get started and introduce myself first. My name is Jenny Stiff, and I work in the Gifted office, and I'm excited to present this topic today for you all. And I'm going to be the one behind the scenes. So as my other two colleagues introduce themselves, I'm going to be getting the screen going. I hope you enjoy our presentation today.
Thanks, Jenny.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Dominique Pleasant Moore. I'm the ELA K-5 lead.
And I'm Carrie Gray. I'm the AIC at Carrick.
Okay, I think they're on. All right. So we're going to begin our presentation this afternoon with some norms. I attended a great session a few weeks ago, and Noah Klein, another AIC, suggested that you have norms just like for any PD. And so today, the norms we have for you all is we want you to be present. If you're watching this, we're so used to multitasking these days. We just ask that you stay present and pay attention. We want you to participate. I saw a lot of great chat in the session before ours today, so we really hope to see and encourage you to ask questions and give us feedback. We would love for you to give us a shout out on Twitter if you enjoy this session today, and at the end you'll see our Twitter feeds. And then we want you to be open to new ideas. Always, as a teacher, I think this is very important. And if you see anything today that you like, we hope that you share these ideas with others. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dominique.
All right, I'd like to share our objectives for today. First, we're going to identify the 4 areas of creativity, and Jenny's going to go into detail about what those 4 areas are. We're going to apply the 4 areas of creativity to ELA standards, and we will talk about always remembering to ensure that that our creative strategies stick closely and stay focused on our ELA standards. And we're going to create lessons for students combining those ELA standards and creativity.
Okay, so we're going to talk about what do you think? Oh, I'm sorry, Carrie, this is you.
No, you're fine. Go for it.
I had 2 marks and I'm nervous. I apologize. So we want you all to think about when you hear the word creativity, if you're with us this afternoon, go ahead and type into the chat box. What do you think about? What words come to mind when you hear this word, creativity? And Carrie, feel free to add anything if I left something out.
All right, I'm looking at the chat. It takes a minute. There's a little bit of a delay.
No problem. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on. And I'm going to tell you exactly what we mean by creativity. And we want to, typically when we think of creativity, most people think of originality. We think of it, or we think of creativity as someone who's very artistic. They can be both of those things, but we want you to be aware that creativity is actually composed of 4 components. The first component is fluency, and that's just students' ability to generate many ideas. Most of you would think of this as brainstorming. That's one of the most common ways teachers use fluency in their classroom. The next area is flexibility. Flexibility are students' ability to consider different points of views, make analogies, metaphors, comparisons, show changes, or talk about how they could improve something. So in the gifted world, oftentimes we'll ask a student to talk about the many uses of a paperclip. And the more different ideas they come up with, that's showing flexibility. However many ideas they generate is fluency. So there is a slightly different. Most people tend to think of that paperclip question and they list tools. But we want you to be flexible in your thinking and think about how a paperclip might be a piece of art. It could be a toy for a child. So you really want to think about those concrete examples when you're thinking of fluency and flexibility and the difference. Originality is pretty much what it sounds like. It's those new one-of-a-kind ideas. And we use fluency to generate brainstorming in the hopes that we come up with this one-of-a-kind idea. And we all know in the world today, there are so many new ideas, it's very difficult to come up with them. So this one is exceptionally hard, but it's also very high level thinking. And then of course, elaboration is an English teacher's dream come true. We always want kids to add details and to show and don't tell. And so those are the 4 areas of creativity and what we mean when Dominique and Carrie and I talk today to you all about creativity.
Perfect. So the next thing we're going to talk about is why we would really want to include creativity into our instruction. We're going to focus today heavily on ELA, but really considering why creativity is important in any content area. Of course, the top reason being that it increases student engagement. So you can see just from Jenny's description or definition of what creativity is, how we can create tasks that would be a little bit more engaging and rigorous for students through creativity. So we're going to increase the rigor, and we're going to break down some ELA standards to show you exactly what that looks like. I know rigor is a big buzzword that we're always talking about, but really what we're trying to do is get our students to think deeper and promote critical thinking. So we're going to show you some tasks that will help do that as well. We're also trying to encourage our students to be risk takers. So we know that a lot of times students get stuck on thinking about the one answer they think the teacher wants them to say, but really we want them to be risk takers and consider multiple perspectives and ways of looking at things. And we know that creativity fosters motivation. So it kind of goes back to engagement. The more they're motivated, the more they stay engaged, and it just becomes a cycle. So by creating activities that involve both creativity and ELA, we're going to have students more motivated to do the work. And as I mentioned before, we know it's going to affect all content areas, but it's proven to promote achievement across all content areas. And then encouraging creative thinking and problem solving. So we're going to take you through some activities today, and we think that you will see clearly why all of these things are at the forefront of including creativity in our instruction.
Thanks, Carrie. So the question still remains, how does creativity connect to ELA? Well, the 3 of us think that's an easy answer, and it meshes together quite nicely. And Dominique's going to go over some of the ways that creativity connects to ELA.
Great, thank you, Jenny. ELA standards and creativity are perfect companions. And here are some reasons why we think that is so. ELA offers an abundance of opportunities for students to challenge ideas, problem solve, think critically, having an amazing conversation with students, having those opportunities to share ideas. ELA naturally offers activities that are conducive to creative thinking, webbing, brainstorming, visualizing, considering points of view, symbolizing, and the list is endless. ELA, along with creative thinking, allows students to find multiple correct answers. And I think this gives students, it makes them more comfortable with the process, knowing that they may not have come up with the same answer as someone else in their class, and that their answer is also considered right. Then encouraging different thinking. When there is more than one answer, they're more encouraged to give an answer and to participate. ELA offers an endless amount of creative, literary, and informational text to be used.
Thanks, Dominique. And I want to stress that second to last bulleted item from the gifted perspective. Gifted kids really struggle with being wrong. And the older they get, especially high school and middle school, they really tend to get anxiety over it. And so the more we start with young learners and teaching them that innovation comes from multiple tries, from lots of failure. I watched a documentary recently about a scientist who said she was on her 160th attempt at trying to solve a problem. So think about that, 160 times she's tried. So that resiliency of her keeping on that was taught to her at some point, and we want to make sure that our students walk out of JCPS with that same resiliency.
Ginny, I totally agree.
Carrie?
All right, so here's what we want to do with this work today. So Jenny mentioned the 4 skills or the 4 areas of creativity. And Jenny comes from the Gifted and Talented department with JCPS. And this is the definition of creativity that they use to go in and determine our gifted and talented students. That being said, everything we're going to show you today, they're all activities that I would use with any student in any general ed classroom, gifted and talented or not. So all of these activities will help support any of your students. And Jenny will hit on in a minute how all of these types of activities also support the work with gifted and talented. But first, what we're going to do is take you through a standard, and we have a 1st grade, a 3rd grade, and a 5th grade standard, and we're going to walk you through some ideas of how to create activities that promote fluency or flexibility or originality and elaboration. So here's kind of the process that we went through, and we will speak frequently throughout this about the benefits of working together as a team, because brainstorming with a partner is a critical part of this work when you're just getting started. So here's our example in grade 1, where we are describing characters, settings, and major events using the key details in order to make meaning of the story. And we chose a text, A Bad Case of Stripes. And if you have the presentation, it's linked there if you've not heard the story before. It's about a character named Camilla Cream. And Camilla loves lima beans, but she's so worried about her friends finding out that she loves lima beans. And she begins to change colors throughout the story as part of her fear. So one of the things that we thought, if you're thinking about fluency and all the ways to get students brainstorming, a fun way to help them do that and stick within the standard would be to create a list of sound effects that could occur every time Camilla changes colors. So if you look in the text, you'll see she goes through, she looks like the American flag. She changes like polka dots. So what sounds are students hearing in their minds when all of these events are taking place that they can attach? And then they can use the text to support those ideas. So we're just talking about brainstorming a list of ideas there. And then with flexibility, an idea could be that students work with a partner to list the way the story would have been different if Camilla had enjoyed changing. So if you look through the story, you will see that Camilla was very concerned about changing colors and wanted it to stop. So how would the story be different? So we're trying to get them to think a little bit more flexibly about the character and how it would change the story. And then with originality, coming up with a solution to help Camilla stop changing colors that does not involve lima beans. So this, if you haven't read the book, this gives away the ending. But if students could come up with a more original way of solving her problem, and then using the story to go back and refer to for the way that new solution might change the meaning. And then with elaboration, we're trying to get students to elaborate on what's happening. And a fun way to do that would be to have them pretend like they are Camilla Cream. How does Camilla feel? What are her thoughts? What is she doing? And then students could illustrate, create a story with quotation marks, speech bubbles, a storyboard, however they want to display that to show what they think as Camilla. So these are some ideas for the 1st grade, and Jenny's going to take you through some ideas for how to do this with 3rd grade.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm all ready to do some of these lessons. It must be the English teacher in me. So I'm going to use the third grade standard of inferencing, point 1, and I'm going to walk you through the same process of just making sure we don't lose the standard. I also want to stress that you want to keep kids contextually appropriate. When we say creativity, you will have kids that can go way out there. You will see them, especially if they're gifted in the area of creativity. So you want to make sure that you tell students, although you can have fun, it must fit within the context of the story. So for example, if it's realistic fiction and you're having them elaborate on a new ending, it has to be realistic and follow all of the genre's characteristics. So I want to make sure you're getting that part of this as well. So as you can see for fluency, I used Dog Breath. I took it right off the curriculum map as appropriate text for third grade. And the story is The Horrible Trouble with Halitosis. And so this story sort of runs you through a family, the Tosis family, to play on words, and how their dog Hallie has this horrible bad breath, and it causes the family all sorts of problems. And so the student or the parents tell the children they have to get rid of the dog, and so the whole story is trying to cure Hallie's breath so they can keep the dog. So to start out with fluency, with third grade, I would have students brainstorm all the ways that having bad breath can be positive. So you're taking the conflict of the story, but you're reversing it. So automatically we've increased the rigor way up high on that Bloom's taxonomy, which is what we want for all children. And so if you click on this link, and I'm going to show you, I took some pictures of the story to help students. And of course, I'm going to stress that all of these activities would probably not be something you would start out with. You would have to have some teaching. This might be an end of the week or a Friday choice board or something along that lines. This would never be a topic because of the level of rigor that we would introduce right away. So looking at this first or second picture here, now that they're coming up, you see grandma has fallen over. And so we could infer here that clearly something is wrong with her. But maybe the positive thing that students might come up with is they don't really like grandma. She's kind of boring. She has bad breath herself. She's mean. You know, she might be the atypical grandma. And so the positive there we could use by our inferencing skills is maybe the students, maybe the kids don't want grandma there. So Hallie helped them out. So just kind of a silly inference, but it's still using all the skills of ELA and harmonizing them with creativity. And then I'm going to go through flexibility, originality, and elaboration a bit quicker. You can read them, but I'll talk to you a little bit about the process. So for flexibility, we want students to list how the story might change if Hallie didn't have bad breath. Or I told you the Tosis children go through a bunch of ways to cure her. And what if the very first time they had cured that? Well, we all know that would totally change the story. And so we want kids to be able to go back, find the sentence or the part of the text where it would change, and be able to reference that text using the standard, but also being flexible in their thinking. Originality, I always feel, is the easiest in ELA because anytime a student is coming up with something new or rewriting an ending or adding a part to the story, that's original. And so they're generating original ideas, which pairs very nicely with reading the writing piece. So we wanted students to write a contextually appropriate process for trying to cure Hallie's breath. Just like with the stripes in Carrie's example, how can we cure the stripes? How could we cure the bad breath? Being original in that. And then, of course, finally, with elaboration, Hallie's breath affected everyone, not just the Tosis family. So you could find a different character back in the story, having the students go back to the text using that 3.1 standard. And we want them to elaborate on what someone might say. So they're using originality here because they're going to have to add a scene. They're elaborating. They're even tying in point of view from my middle school English standards. I see them flying in, and I love it. So as much as we're still focusing on 3.1, we've touched on many standards if you're taking students through this example. And I want to finish with just leaving you with this thought that creative strategies expose young learners to high level of Bloom's. When we start this as early as kindergarten, first and second grade, research shows We have more equity amongst our advanced program and gifted communities, which is something I'm very passionate about. Our excellence gap is a problem, and research shows just exposing little people to these wonderful ideas will make them qualify earlier in gifted programs. So I really hope that some of you utilize these ideas today. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dominique to show you an awesome 5th grade example. Dominique? Hello?
Dominic, you're on mute. Sorry.
Mute. I'm sorry, I did that yesterday. I want to first say that this is my first time creating these tasks. So I started coming up with the ideas and I bounced them off of Carrie and Jenny. And it was amazing how much easier it was working with a team, with people to create these tasks. So if it seems like it's something that may be hard, or you don't know if you're doing it right, or you need help working through it, we're going to offer you an opportunity to bounce ideas off of us. And once I started leaning on them a little bit, it got easier. And I, like Jenny said, I got excited and want to be able to share these with kids to see what their responses would be. So I did grade 5, standard 5.2, which was dealing with theme. The text I used was Pink and Say, which is one of my favorite books by Patricia Polacco. And it is a story where these 2 young men were fighting in the Civil War. Pink was an African-American, Say was a white soldier, and they became friends. So first we're going to look at fluency. Students will brainstorm a list of themes that would fit for this story and a list of themes that would not fit for this story. So the story is filled with different themes. So you want them to brainstorm and come up with as many themes as they can find. And you also want them to think a little deeper and think about some themes that wouldn't fit this story. Students will reference the text to support their ideas. And then we're moving into flexibility. Students will work with a partner to brainstorm all the ways the story might change if Pink had been injured instead of Say. How might these changes affect the theme? And this gets kids thinking like, so what would have happened? What could have been different? And like we said in the beginning, there's not one correct answer to that question. So kids are going to be able to share without being afraid of being wrong. Originality, students will work with a partner and rewrite the part of the story when the soldiers come to Momo Bay's house. Would this original new part of the story affect the theme? Once again, they're thinking, and there's no one correct answer. And so there's also a level where kids could even kind of debate back and forth their changes or what would happen to the theme. And students provide references to the text to support the answer. And last, elaboration. Pink and Say had a unique friendship. Elaborate a final scene that would continue the theme of friendship. And I really would love to hear some of students' responses to that one. How would they extend the theme of friendship in this story? And students will cite implicit and or explicit evidence from the text to support ideas. And I'd like to say again, Jenny said, now this is a task that you wouldn't introduce theme with. This would be, I would say you could even, like Jenny said, at the end of the week, a summative assessment. You could use this in that way, but not to introduce the theme to the students.
Very important. I'm glad you keep restating that. And the other thing that I think we've forgotten to say is we would never use all 4 areas of creativity right away. You want to ease into this. So we might just start with fluency. And I want to encourage teachers who are going to try these to use the word fluency. Teach children what they're doing. When you brainstorm, boys and girls, you're being fluent. When you think of different ideas, you're being flexible. And the more you use these words and teach them what creativity is, then they get a real concrete feel for what that means. And therefore, their metacognitive practices become even better, which is what we want for all kids and especially what we want for gifted kids.
So,
Carrie?
you. We hope just by providing you with some examples of ideas for the standards, you see now how being creative with ELA will really engage students, get them motivated to do the work. It's increasing rigor. You know, we live a lot in that recall and understanding area of Bloom's, and you can see how all of these activities raise the level of rigor for students and increase critical thinking. So how do we incorporate these ideas into NTI instruction? So what we've done here, Jenny, if you'll click on the choice board, just to show you an example of how you can take these same ideas and put them on any choice board or weave them into any online lessons that you are doing. And we've linked this to the presentation. So if you want to steal our ideas, you're welcome to do that. Copy and paste away if it matches what you're working on. And so we just pulled a couple of our favorite ideas from all the 4 areas of creativity. And then, Jenny, if you will go back, and we're going to click on, this is an opportunity for you to practice. So we've created just kind of a blank template here for you to go on and just take a standard and practice through all 4 areas. And we have also linked this on a Padlet that Jenny is going to show you, because we know how critical it is to brainstorm and have feedback, and we wanted to give you an opportunity to get that feedback from any one of us if you would like to share your ideas. So Jenny, if you'll show them where the Padlet is.
Sure. Thank you. So we've linked it here on our second to last slide. We've included a link to one of our favorite TED Talks that's from Sir Ken Robinson. He's a big proponent of creativity in schools. And some of his reasons, you all, are the ever increasing need for creativity. Our jobs in 15 years, we have no idea what's going to be expected of kids. Keep that in mind. Oftentimes, I've heard that jobs now are asking kids to tell them why they would be a good fit for their company. Can you imagine that? Instead of putting your resume together, filling out your objective and getting a very specific job list, nowadays Humana is asking hirees to say, what can you offer our company? That is a different type of skill, much more creative thinking in that. And so we want our students to be prepared and have these skills that will make them more marketable for their future. And so if you click on this ELA, it'll take you to our Padlet. And what I've linked is that TED Talk. I've linked all our stories. We've included the ELA planning tool. We've also included our slides. And so here, if you want to add, or if you fill out the tool and you want us to look at it, we'd be happy to take a look here. This is a private site, and so your work isn't out there. It's just for JCPS employees. So we really hope that you take a chance to put some documents up here for us to give you feedback. The 3 of us have enjoyed it. We've said that multiple times, and I know ELA teachers, and we love to share. So please utilize our Padlet in the next weeks, and I'll keep checking it, and we hope to see some people partaking in it. And I'm going to let Carrie finish us out today.
Thanks, Jenny. I just want to add to that. I've started to do a little bit of this work with teachers at Carrick, and it's really fun to think outside the box and plan lessons that you're not used to planning. It really stretches our thinking to help us grow as teachers as well. So really appreciate your attention today and joining us, and hope you were able to take away some creativity and ELA ideas. Please look for us on Twitter. Here's our Twitter account, and let us know if you have any questions.
That is awesome. Thank you. And Jennifer, you had me there. You guys were great. You were getting to the rigor, and you were getting to all the ways to really deepen the lessons. And I was like, okay, I'm there. But then as a former business teacher, you spoke directly to me. You said, here is how this skill is applicable to when they go to get a job in Humana. That was awesome. So thank you guys for tying that all back in for the students and the folks watching.
Well, thank you. And I just want to finish by, I saw a few of my middle school friends are. The same process for ELA works the same, you all. We modeled elementary today, but I want you to know that you take the same template, the same standards, and you can do the same things with your students and even into high school. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, Thank you, team. We appreciate you guys being with us. Have a great weekend. It was good to see everybody's face today.
Yeah.
And
Happy Friday.
happy Friday. Yeah. Well, we're going to turn it over here shortly to a team on bullying prevention. But real quick, if you'd like to find out when an episode that's coming on that may spark your interest is, you can navigate to the JCPS NTI support page, head to the teacher toolkit, and then click on the virtual training schedule. From there, you can click on the week, and then you can see session days and times. And so, again, right now we're about to head into the All About Bullying Prevention with Crystal, Steve, and Brittany. So I'm going to head back over to that chat and ask if you guys are ready to rock. My bully prevention team, you guys ready to go?
Hello. We are ready to rock on this Friday.
All right. Well, welcome to you. If you guys have a presentation you intend to share, let me know. And if you need help walking through the closed captioning, we'll get you set up. Okay.
We got it. We've been, I feel like I've been doing this for a while now. I'm going to hide this real quick.
All right.
And let me get my screen up and put the closed caption on after I get it in present mode. There we go.
While she's getting closed captioning turned on, don't forget, guys, if you're just joining us in the chat, let us know what school you're with. Let us know who you are. Please ask questions. The more involved and robust we can make that discussion, the better it is for everybody. So, again, thank you, and I'll turn it over to the bully prevention team.
Good afternoon again. Today is Friday. We're so excited to be here with everyone that is watching. Teachers, thank you again so much for all that you've been doing for your students and for yourselves. Self-care is important as well during this NTI distance learning. Today, we want to talk to you about how bullying can affect everyone, but you can make a difference. Teachers, you are on the front lines. Even though we're not with the students physically, you're still being able to teach them through your distance learning, through those chats and those Google Meets and Hangouts and those type of things. And so we want to give you some important information about bullying today and some specific things that will target the cyberbullying. All right, so we are the Bullying Prevention Department. I am Crystal Carter. My picture's up on the screen there. I'm going to be presenting, so my face won't show, but my picture is there for you. And then my resource teachers.
Steve Giddings.
And Brittany Nitt.
And our clerk is Janet Young. And Janet is the person who takes care of all of our tip line reports, whether they come in via the website or they come in via the phone. And we'll give you that information towards the end of our presentation. So today, we just want to remind you, we do this each time, that we are the Bullying Prevention Department. A lot of people in JCPS don't even know that there is a Bullying Prevention Department. So though we are small, it's the four of us, but we are mighty. We take care of all elementary, middle, and high school. We work directly with the assistant superintendent's offices to make sure that any reports come in, that they go directly to them. And then from there, they trickle down into the schools so that the investigation can start and we can get the help to students that is needed. So we provide educational resources and supports to JCPS stakeholders concerning bullying prevention. And we intend to build capacity of the learner, whether that's the adult that we're teaching or talking to or the students, which we really focus in on the student. But our efforts are to increase awareness about bullying prevention, to reduce bullying behaviors, and also to aid the students that are involved in those bullying situations. And we're going to focus in a little bit more on that later. But those are the people who are harmed by bullying, the person who is displaying that bullying behavior, and also the bystanders, the people that see this bullying behavior go on. And the third pillar of JCPS, we know we have the three pillars, but positive culture and climate, or culture and climate, is one. And we want to increase positive culture and climate. We are actually a part of, or a team in the Culture and Climate Department under Dr. Katie DeFerrari. Shout out to Culture and Climate that's out there. And so one of the things we definitely want to do is increase the positive culture and climate, not only in your classroom teachers, but in your schools and in our district as a whole. And so if you need us, we can come out to observe classroom. We come out to observe specific students to try to pinpoint what may be going on. We can come out to conference with students about situations that are going on. We can come out to help students, build up some strategies for themselves if they are a person harmed by bullying or if they are a person who may be displaying that bullying behavior. We are also trained in Obeus Bullying Prevention, which is a world-renowned bullying prevention program. And we hope to have some schools be a part of that program with us next year as we get that pushed out. And we just want you guys to know that we are here to support you. Again, we are strong, we're small, but we're mighty. We come out, we're everywhere, all over Jefferson County, elementary, middle, and high school. So in our first few presentations we did over the last few weeks, we really focusing on what bullying is and what it isn't. So I just want to highlight a few things and move on from there. The main thing we want you to know, teachers, is that bullying is repeated, or it has the potential to be repeated. It is deliberate. And it's purposeful, it's intentional, and it's marked by imbalance of power. And that's something that causes the field not to be even. It's something that could be a physical difference. It's something that could be psychological or a emotional type of difference. Something that's causing an imbalance. The things aren't equal. The playing field is not the same with the students. So those are the three main things that we look for when we're coming out to substantiate a case of bullying. There are 4 types of bullying mainly that we see. And we showed you our newsletter in the last 2 presentations that we did. This month's newsletter that you can find in your NTI folders, teachers, and Brittany will talk about that a little later, is focused on cyberbullying. But physical bullying and verbal bullying, those are things that you see directly in your classrooms when you are with your students. You can see and hear those things. But some of the indirect things that you may not be able to see and hear are the social, emotional, or the relational bullying that has to do with isolation and causing students to feel left out or not being a part of the group. And then also the cyberbullying. And those are things that happen over the electronic devices. And today we're going to show you some links that have tactics and some things that may be happening as far as cyberbullying taking place. I'm going to turn it over to Steve, and he's going to talk about some of the reasons why students may bully.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So we know that there are numerous reasons people are targeted for bullying. One of the main ones that we recognize when we go out to classrooms are it's because of perceived differences, either positive or negative. We know that sometimes we lost our screen.
It's still here.
Okay, I see it now. So we know it's perceived most of the time for either positive or negative. Perceived differences. So some of those differences that we recognize are race, color, national origin, religious beliefs, sex or gender identity, age, disability. And those ones I just mentioned, those are actually protected classes. And students who fall under that class actually have federal protections as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly. But when we ask teachers to look for with students who may be targeted, look out for maybe people who wear glasses or have braces, students who might be larger, maybe obese, students who wear religious attire like hijabs or yarmulkes, burqas, prayer caps, that sort of thing. Any type of physical differences, different styles of clothing, different accents or language difference. We know that these protected classes also, this is when you start getting into harassment. A lot of times we use the word bullying and harassment kind of intertwined, and there is a difference. So they both, there's both an imbalance of power. They both aim to hurt or harm the other person. And it's about power and control. But what makes something harassment is the protected class. And that, again, is the race, religion, sex or gender identity, age, and disability. So moving on to bullying behavior that violates civil or criminal law. And when we go over this slide in classrooms, students sometimes can't believe that these things can actually be against the law. So we talk about physical bullying, which is considered assault, gender bullying or sexual harassment, dating abuse, domestic violence, intimidating for gain or extortion, rumors or lies, which is defamation of character, bullying based on race, national origin, sex, or disability. Again, this is the civil rights violations, and there are federal protections for those. Bullying someone who is disabled, cyberbullying, harassment by communication or stalking, and then sexting or sending inappropriate pictures or text. Then we go into peer conflict or bullying versus bullying, and we describe the difference because a lot of times the line is blurred, especially in elementary and middle, because a lot of times friends, we get in arguments and we have disagreements. Sometimes friends actually fight. So we have to know the difference between peer conflict and bullying. So peer conflict is defined as a disagreement or an argument. There's usually equal power. That means it's two peers, usually around the same age, same size, same popular group. And they generally stop and change the behaviors when they realize someone's been hurt. So if I hurt my friend's feelings, I know usually I'm going to stop, I'm going to apologize, and hopefully make things right and move on. But on the other hand, we have the bullying, and it's a lot different. The goal is to hurt, harm, or humiliate. A friend wouldn't do that. There's usually unequal power, and that could be in numbers, groups of people. It could be size. It could be popularity. It could be intellectual. Anything where there's power or perceived power. And then the behavior is continuous, even if someone is hurting. So that's the difference between bullying and peer conflict. Like I said, a lot of times those lines are blurred. So it's good to know that as a teacher. And then moving on to the roles the other students play in bullying situations. If you look at this slide here, the letter A up there is the person who's doing the bullying. And then the person in the middle is H, and that's the person who's being bullied. But if you look at all the rest of the people involved, you had the followers, the supporters, the passive supporters, disengaged onlookers, possible defenders, and then the defenders. But all these people are involved in the bullying situation, even if it's just between the person who's doing the bullying and the person who's being bullied. You have all the other people who are standing and watching or passing by and seeing what's going on. So Oveus has done a study that showed that only 14 to 17% of people may be directly involved with the bullying situation, but 80+% are bystanders, and they see this going on. Also, research has shown that if the situation isn't handled, usually by an adult in the building, and this continues in school, that it does affect the culture and climate of the building. And this is one of the main reasons that we're going to be starting this Oveus. We have started this Oveus program in several Jefferson County schools, and our goal is to roll it out within the next year or two. And we'll talk more about that in the future. But now I'm going to pass it on to Brittany, and she'll go a little bit further in depth on cyberbullying.
Thank you, Steve, and happy Friday, everybody. So we're going to start by just talking about how bullying has changed immensely. We put pictures of a pager, of a phone booth, and a landline just to show what bullying used to be. Because now that technology is so readily available to our students, bullying is everywhere, especially cyberbullying. So back in the day when you were on the phone, your parents at any time could pick up that phone and know exactly who you're talking to or what you were doing on the phone. Whereas our kids now have their own cell phone. They are on different social media outlets, and their parents aren't always able to monitor those, even though we highly encourage that. And especially during NTI, when students are with technology, maybe on their Chromebooks more, a home computer, their cell phones are available 24/7, as they wouldn't be if they were still in school. Cyberbullying is just at their fingertips. And this was just a great way for us to show how it has become so important. And like I said, so readily available to them that it's every day it could be in a student's face. So that's really important for us to keep in mind as we're going through NTI throughout the summer, and especially when we're back in school as well. So we're going to talk about what students responded when we asked, does bullying happen more often than adults think? So when they were asked, the responses were yes, so much more than they know. Bullying happens mostly online. It happens secretly. Kids don't tell anyone, and when they do, they just tell part of the story. And in a training we did, it was either last week or the one before, we really talked about how it's so important to open those lines of communication with students, and how they have to feel like it's safe to talk to one adult at least. It might be the custodian at your school. It could be the assistant principal. It could be their favorite teacher. Just any trusted adult that they feel that will listen and help them get through bullying is crucial, because we have to have open lines of communications. When we go into schools and we're teaching students about bullying, most of them say, I'm scared to tell. I don't want to be a snitch. I don't want to be in trouble with my friends. So most of them aren't telling because they don't want to look bad in their peer group, as well as they don't want to feel like they're in trouble or causing trouble by an adult, because they feel like if they go to you, then you're going to tell the other students, so-and-so told me that you've been bullying them. So it's really important that you already have that relationship developed before students feel like they're comfortable enough to come and tell you about it. And that's really important, especially during NTI. Students can still email you. Maybe if you're on Google Meet or Google Classroom with them, just let them know that they do have a trusted adult, because even though this is hard for us as adults, it's 100 times harder for our students. And again, with technology readily at their hands, cyberbullying is happening more often than we're all aware of. So that leads us to the NTI support links. When we did our training last week, we shared the different support links, and this is within the NTI toolkit. If you go and click on the bullying icon that we're showing you, you will find teacher support, and within that, you will find a ton of information, documents about bullying, whether it be cyber, physical, all kinds of bullying ideas, videos, things to know about different social media outlets. And we're going to talk about some really important ones in the next slide, and some different fun things you can do with students during this time as well. So cyberbullying has been our focus during NTI because, like we've all said, technology is everywhere. Students have it readily available. They're on their cell phones more because they're not in class. So within the teacher toolkit, there are some important links that already have activities, resources ready for you to use now. So the first one is cyberbullying tactics. And if you click on this, it's actually a part of stopbullying.gov, but it gives teachers different tactics that students are using to become cyberbullies. So it's good for not only teachers, but you can also share that with parents as well. The next link is suggested age-appropriate apps, and on here they are broke up for learning and fun. So it's not all serious apps, but giving your students choice and parents another option if they need to keep their kids busy. Fun and learning activities for all grades. And then pacer.org, stopbullying.gov. We use these often because the information in here is great. We use these for our presentations. They just have bullying information. They have lessons readily available that you can go through and just pick and choose what you would like to use. So that's really easy, and it's right there at your fingertips. National Online Safety. This is actually a safety training for schools. So if there's any admins on here, this is something you can use for your teachers to work through. For online safety teachers, this is something you could use bits and pieces from to create classroom lessons for your students, even during the NTI time. And then the last two are our past 2 training videos that we did, in case you missed it, that you can click on and find the information that we went through with teachers on April 17th. And then we also did a parent training video. And then I'm going to show you one last thing about distance learning lessons. If you were to go to the Pacers website and where the red arrow is pointing to, click Classroom, it has grade level specific elementary, middle, and high school classroom lessons. So these are lessons on all types of bullying that are already prepared and nothing that a teacher has to go and create themselves, which is, I think, definitely a bonus right now, because I know teachers are working so hard creating NTI lessons. So if you go there, you're going to find resources. It's nothing you have to follow like day 1, day 2, but just pick and choose some things that you feel like might be helpful for your students. Also good for school counselors to use as needed. And then the last thing, the all in, if you click there are cards already made that go right along with the distance learning series that you can incorporate into morning meetings on NTI. You can have students do nice things to build classroom culture, something you might want to keep in mind for the beginning of next year when hopefully we're back in the classroom. And then there's blank ones, so you could create things. So it might say, for instance, be a good friend to somebody and send them a nice email. So you would let a student pick that out and then they would send that. So it just kind of promotes, again, social emotional positivity, classroom culture, creating and building relationships, which we know is all important for our students, especially right now since we're not physically with them. All right, so I'm going to turn it back to Crystal.
Thank you, Brittany, and thank you, Steve. As we are wrapping up, I wanted to be sure that teachers, that you are informed, that you are empowered, because each school should have a bullying prevention or anti-bullying, it may be called an anti-bullying policy that should be on file with your school through your SBDM, or if you are an AIS school, even though it may be disbanded right now, administration should still be using and following whatever policy that you have. Every state in the United States has a bullying prevention law and policy. And so for the state of Kentucky, we have the KRS statutes, and they have been updated. There are some things with bullying and harassment in there. That's why we made sure we touched on the class piece with Steve about the harassment. But because it is a law, we have to make sure as Jefferson County teachers, as Jefferson County schools, that we have a policy in place at our school and that we are using that policy. We are working by that policy. And so if at your school you haven't heard it, you've never seen it, you don't know anything about it, I urge you, teachers, to be sure that you know what the policy is, that you understand it, and that you admonish your administrators to follow it. If you don't, then below at the bottom, it says SBDM policy template. There is the template for you that everyone started out with, but we have urged each school to customize it based the information that you want to use and set up your policy based upon what's happening at your school. Some of the things at one school may be different than another. Things that happen in middle school and high school could be totally different than some of the things that are happening at the elementary level. And so when you're creating your policy and you're putting in the definition, which is going to be the same for everyone, but how to report. Your school may have different ways of reporting. Schools have come up with some great creative ways for anonymous reporting. Teachers have different ways, or counselors have come up with different places and ways that they can report anonymously or openly. And then the important thing in this policy is how the situation is handled. Is this something for the first time? Is this a level 1 or is it a level 2? Do you want to draw out things as to who will handle things? So as you are nearing the end of the year, I know when I was an administrator at McFerrin Elementary School, we had committees and subcommittees, and at the end of each year, each subcommittee was in charge of something. And so for anybody that's out there, there is a bullying prevention committee or there are a policy committee, please bring this forth to them. Make sure that they have this information. If you are on the SBDM or one of your fellow teachers is on SBDM, please admonish them, encourage them, empower them with this information so that it can be used in order to prevent bullying at your school, and or when it does happen, that we know how it's handled and it's go through the correct chain of command. That makes a big difference. When students know that there are consequences for action, students know it's visible, they see the policy up, students are talking about it, teachers are talking about it, the parents know about it, it's given to them. They may have a sign-off sheet, or they may have something that they're doing during orientation to sign off, or they initial saying that they've seen it, they read it. It makes people accountable. And so when things happen, they can't say, I didn't know. We want to hold people accountable for their actions. I know people make mistakes, but we still want to hold people accountable for the things that they may do to hurt someone. And so again, the policy template is at the bottom. You can click on that link and go directly into a Google Doc that has that. Make a copy of it and you can use it as you wish. All right, so we want to make sure that we give you our information as far as how to report. What you see here is our tip line flyer. You can call this bullying tip line 24/7. Teachers, I admonish you to give this information to families, give this information to your students, empower them, help them to know that they can advocate for themselves. It's not about snitching. It's about being supported in what they're doing. It's about being protected. If something's going on that may be hurting them, whether it's physically or emotionally, we need to be there to support our students. And so we want to give them this information. The information is the phone number here, also the definition of bullying, so they can know specifically those things. The things highlighted in red, again, are those 3 main things that we're looking for to substantiate. And there's a QR code if they want to click into that to get more information from the website. We also like to show students, and we have we're not with you, but when we go out to schools, we have our cards that we pass out. And this is another way you can report. You can go onto the JCPS website. Right now, everything says NTI, but on a normal day, the interface is still the same. At the top right or the bottom right of the screen, you see that bully stop sign. It looks like a stop sign with a B in the middle of it. That's our bully button. And so you can click on that, and that will take you to the JCPS hotline for compliance. It's a page. Let me show you what it looks like. When you go into it, you'll see this. And as you can see where the arrow is, bullying, harassment is one of the things that can be reported here. But there are several other things that can be reported. Again, like I told you, Janet Young is our clerk. She takes care of all this bullying, prevention, and harassment information. But internal audit department, which is Jodelle Wren, she is the director. She's awesome to work with. And Shalyn Comich, they are awesome people to work with. They investigate all these other things that may be there. So it may not be bullying and harassment, but maybe something else is going on. And their reports come here, and it goes out to the correct department to handle. You want to make sure you click on that green at the bottom left that says begin a new report. Make sure you let your families know. When they get finished and they've answered all the questions and given all the information that's needed, they need to hold on to their access code. It is imperative that they hold on to that access code. The access code is what's going to get them back into that second choice where it says follow up on a report. Sometimes people don't have all the information or they need to talk to their kid first. And when the kid comes home, the access code is needed to get back into the account. In this place, you can upload pictures, you can upload screenshots, you can upload videos of things. This is where you can put your evidence if you have any of the things that are going on. And so again, teachers, I admonish you to let your families know, let your students know, and even if something's going on with you, we even have teachers that report that things may be going on with another teacher or an administrator. So it's not just for students. The bullying prevention line and the tip line are for everybody in JCPS, right? So I'm going to go to the live chat. I've been keeping up with it. There have been a lot of good comments and things. I don't see any questions. So I do want to say thank you to those that are out there supporting us. We appreciate you. Culture and Climate is definitely in the house. We appreciate our department and our team. I don't see any questions. I'm going to give a second just in case anybody wants to put anything up. And I want to give you our information. If you do have any questions, you can always contact us via email. I'm Crystal Carter. We have Steve Giddings, Brittany Nip, and Janet Young. And so, let's see. Oh, good. Kimberly Lawrence White said that they're pleased to know that the standard's set up to help our early childhood developers as well. So that's good. We definitely want to make sure that we're getting the students that are coming in early ready and set up for what they will need as they grow and matriculate through school in JCPS. All right, so we just want to say thank you, and we're going to turn it back over to our JCPS digital learning team.
All right. Hey, thank you, Crystal and team. Guys, that was awesome. It's good to know that, the students and for that matter, the adults aren't alone out there. And so we appreciate you being there. And it's evident in hearing you guys speak that you guys are passionate about the work you do. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
You guys have a great weekend. At this time, we're going to turn this over to the professional collaboration in the virtual environment, folks, with Diane Robertson and Suzanne Krause. Guys, if you're just joining us in the chat, we would love for you to let us know what school you're representing or department, your name, contribute to the chat, ask questions, say hey. We love to hear from you. It really keeps it lively. And we watch that chat, and they've got team members in there doing the same. So at this time, I'll turn it over to them. If you guys are ready to rock, and I'll let you loose.
Well, thank you. Today, we're going to be talking about virtual collaborative planning. I'm Diane Robertson. I'm an instructional coach and PLC support for early childhood. And presenting with me is Susan. Susan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi there. I'm Susan Krause, and I'm an early childhood instructional coach. Currently located at Westport Early Childhood, and glad to be working with Diane today.
And we have an additional help. Molly Siegel from Louisville Middle High School will be collaborating with us. Thanks to both of you. Okay, so before we get started, I want to ask a couple of questions. And the first one is, how much time do you spend planning with your team? Now, the second one is, how many email attachments do you exchange? So if that's making you cringe, making you shudder, then you probably should consider planning together virtually. So I'm getting ready to share my screen. Hope it works well.
Ladies, just wanted you to know we're already getting lots of love on the derby hats. You guys look wonderful. So.
They noticed.
Okay, somehow I've lost my screen with Diane. I don't know what happened. So I'm going to back out and come back in and see if I can find you, Diane, because I'm seeing someone else for some reason.
Okay. This is technology for you.
Absolutely. And Diane, have you guys been through this before with the closed captioning and all? Are you familiar with that?
I am.
Great. Okay.
So I bet you're going to want me to do that, aren't you?
If you would, please. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm sure Susan will be back with us pretty soon.
I'm here, Diane. I just, for some reason, I have lost on one of the screens your beautiful face and your beautiful fascinator. But I did want to say that as we go forward talking about professional collaboration in the virtual environment, this is what we're all doing in real time right now. So we're learning as we're teaching.
Exactly. Okay. So we talked about planning together virtually. But let's start first of all about what tool to use. And really, there's many choices, but the G Suite is the most user-friendly. And really, G Suite is just another name for a Google app. And we are going to show how to create content simultaneously in real time and to provide one another with feedback. Now, those of you who have been using the Google Drive know there are two things that drive teachers crazy trying to get in. The first one is use Chrome as your browser. And secondly, make sure that you are signed into your Google account with your JCPS email. And all you need to do is look at the user icon in the right corner, and when you scroll over it or hover over it, you'll be able to see your JCPS email show up. Okay, so now that you've logged into your Google Drive, the next thing you're going to look for is this 3x3 grid. And this is actually called a waffle. And it's going to be the drop down to show you the icons that you can choose from. For what we're doing today, we're going to be using a Google Doc to use for our collaborative planning. If you do not see your icon, there's a scroll bar off to the right, and you can always move it down until you find it. Those are not your only choices. So once you've called up your Google Doc, you hit the little plus sign, and that's what's going to make the new document. It's going to remind you of a Word document when you do that. Once the document is up, now you're able to share it. That's where you're going to find the blue rectangle that has the word share beside your user icon. Once you click that, you're able to name the document, just like you would anywhere else where you're wanting to save a file. You hit save, and then it's going to allow you to email an invitation to others to join you. In the large rectangle, that's where you put the email address. But the pencil at the end of the line is important. That's the rights that you give to the people who join you that you're going to be collaborating with. So down, the drop down from the pencil gives you three choices. The person can edit with you. Now they can also do what's called a suggestion, where they give the edit, but it is either accepted or rejected by the person who owns the document. And they can also just comment, or the third is they will only view the work that's being done, but will not be able to do anything to the actual document. Now, the class.
Okie dokie. Sure you want to end the stream? Yeah, every once in a while. And a few weeks ago, we had issue with wind, I think, had taken down something somewhere. And okay, we might be back in business now. It's a coronavirus miracle. I think I might have us figured out. All right, so let's keep on trucking, and we're recording, so worst case we can chop it up and throw it on there on demand. But if you ladies don't mind, we'll go right ahead, and I'll be checking in with my folks to make sure they can see us. But I won't interrupt you again. We'll just record from here, okay?
Okay, that sounds great. We'll just pick right up where we were.
Thank you.
And so at this point, we were talking about building virtual trust to address the bonding issue. And in addition to the pictures, it's good to take time for that small talk that occurs at the beginning and the end of a meeting.
And this goes back to the thing we discussed earlier. This is what happens in a real face-to-face, real-time meeting, especially with me, is that chatting you up, catching up with each other, kind of just that small talk before the meeting, like you're talking about, that gets everybody ready to work together.
All right, and then I'm going to take the control again of the cursor, and we're going to talk now about the obstacles they had to do with de-escalating misunderstandings. And for that, you need to mix communication with video conferencing.
So just having a nice balance. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, you know, the whole idea that the things you don't say can be as powerful as the things that you do say. So in terms of the video conferencing, we would be looking for those important things like facial expressions, hand gestures, visual cues, those things that say more than what the words do.
And going back to what we said earlier about so that possible misunderstandings don't occur and you're not just relying on what you're reading in text.
Right, right. And I know there was a little glitch with the technology earlier. So how about if we go back, Susan, we'll just kind of summarize what we have on our document here. Do you mind
Yeah,
talking
basically.
about that?
No, I don't mind talking about that at all, Diane. I think we got a little interruption, and so I kind of lost my flow. So I know in this particular collaboration, we were collaborating on how to show other people how to collaborate. So it took some more time for understanding. I think it took a little more time, and it has when we've been working with teachers through Google Classrooms and whatnot. It just takes a little more time. Of course, the technology sometimes toys with us like it just did. But it can be done, and I think we've been proving that it can be done successfully. So we compare it to what it looks like in real time by setting norms, building trust, creating that balance. And we just hope that we can carry this model on out and forward as we all look at a new normal with virtual collaboration.
Right. So we're not going to focus on the obstacles. Instead, we're going to make sure we co-create team norms and rules, build that virtual trust, and make sure that we mix communication with video conferencing. And I would say, do we have any thoughts in the chat? Did you say that's been frozen for a while?
Well, I don't know if it was frozen or if everybody was just mesmerized by our hat.
That's a possibility.
There were no questions. We had some affirmations and just people letting us know that they were here with us. So we appreciate that.
That's very nice. All right. Ooh. So I'm coming back. Yeah, I know.
Something weird just happened to me.
All right. So you all can talk amongst yourself as I try to find me again. And oh, there we go. There I am. Okay. So it looks like our time's about up. We just wanted to say thank you to all of JCPS for the wonderful job you're doing with NTI and all the challenges that go with it. But like Susan said, this is our new normal. So what we're learning now, we're probably going to apply from here on out. So it makes this struggle really work. And thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Molly, for helping us out.
Yes, well, thank you guys very much. I believe wholeheartedly you're very onto something big there. We will, in fact, we were kind of thrust into this environment, but I believe we're thriving, and that's in large part thanks to the teachers and students out there that are doing that work. So we appreciate them, and we appreciate all of those that have joined us to contribute to that discussion on the Learning Channel. So if you guys are interested in checking out a schedule for upcoming shows, you can check out the NTI support page, and under the teacher toolkit, you can head to virtual training schedule. And then from the virtual training schedule, you will see laid out week over week, and then on day and time slot even, where you can find shows that may be of interest to you coming up. So we'd love for you to tune in, contribute to that chat. Let us know if you have any questions, what school and department you're joining us from, and just say hey. So it's always great to get the interaction from the viewers out there. We appreciate you guys hanging with us through some of the technical difficulties that we've experienced here and there. But again, like they mentioned, right, like this is the world we live in. So, we do it together, we learn, we grow, and we move on. So, ladies, you guys did a great job bouncing back from that with me. So thank you for your patience in particular. And I hope everyone has a great weekend. Again, I've been Kyle Chandler with the digital innovation team here at JCPS. Again, you were joined this morning by Mr. Matt Volka, also on my team. And we work with Heather Worrell and a larger group that works to support our schools, K-12, with the Backpack of Success Skills and many other rocks and initiatives. We're always looking for folks to highlight and to bring onto the show with us to go over topics that they think may be beneficial to their peers or to students. So if you guys have ideas or suggestions for that, we'd love to hear from you. So I think Matt started our show today with a little ditty, and I'll end it with the same. So you guys have a great weekend, and remember, it's got to be May.